A twist ending doesn't necessarily a good film make. Warning! Spoilers! Spoilers ahead! Spoilers! Spoilers! Hello my Mercurial mercenaries! First of all, if you've stumbled upon this video because of the title, and I couldn't avoid the title, it is the truth, but if you've stumbled upon this video because of the title, just be aware that this is more of a chat than a review. So, just walk in carefully, and if you feel the need to, back away from the cookie jar. At a time where I feel like I don't really want to make any more videos, as I'm on a platform that associates itself with an odious piece of shit like Logan Paul, I have to assume, however, that most of my viewers have no idea what I'm talking about. So let's move on. I only brought that up because even mentioning The Last Jedi means that I'm encasing myself in a whole world of shit. And not only that, I'm doing it weeks late. So why would I do this? Well, it's simply because I went to the cinema a couple of nights ago to watch The Last Jedi. And I'll tell you what my original plan was. It was to come back, right, and then lie in bed and just do a video review from my bed, and I'd call it something like The Last Jedi from my bed. Never happened, probably for the best. As I was saying, this is going to be more of a chat, because if you're interested in the film, you've probably seen it, or you've probably read the reviews or watched the reviews, and I'm one of those people where I do occasionally go to the cinema, but on the whole, I find the place an irritating experience. I've become one of those people where if you confine me, if you sit me in a chair, put something in front of me and to the sides of me and say, you will sit here. In the case of The Last Jedi, you will sit here for an interminably long time. I have the urge, whereas I probably wouldn't if I was just sitting at home for that same amount of time, but I have the urge, confine me, restrict me. I have the urge to want to dance. I want to dance. I want to dance as if I was listening to Lionel Richie and watching Mick Jagger, and I have that urge. And before you comment, not because of ADHD or anything like that. In fact, watching The Last Jedi the other night, I went, this is a bad thing on my part. I went in there starving hungry, right? And what happened was, to have some food, I had the biggest popcorn that they did, salted, and I ate the whole thing down during the trailers. If you think about the sheer quantity, probably more salt that's in this shaker right now, just lying inside me. What effect does salt have on you? I can only imagine that salt makes you want to dance, because I've heard that ballet dancers like to grind their teeth like that, like a beavers on huge blocks of salt that look like blocks of ice. So let's have a chat. What's my stance on Star Wars in general? Well, people like to rank their Star Wars films in order. Let's just get that out of the way straight away. What's the best Star Wars film? I'd say Star Wars. Never going to call it A New Hope. First comes Star Wars, then we'll say The Empire Strikes Back, then Return of the Jedi. What's good after that? Nothing. The prequels. Was there any point in them? There was moments, maybe moments there. The Force Awakens was pretty much a remake of Star Wars, yeah? I didn't watch it in the cinema, which probably says a lot too. Got it on Blu-ray, watched it. It was alright, quite liked it. Tried to watch it again just over the Christmas period. Got about halfway through it. It was still alright. Never seen Rogue One. Had no intention of going to see The Force Awakens in the cinema, but kind of got dragged. Not dragged. I went along out of my own volition. Is that a word? It was so it just it just gives you a feel from where I'm coming from. Like anyone in my generation, the first 3 Star Wars films were a big deal. Not uniquely a big deal. We had the Indiana Jones films, we had Gremlins, we had 80s films in general, which, looking back with the power of hindsight, were a cut above, weren't they? Or was that just nostalgia? I'm nostalgic, what can I say? I've always been a steadfastly non-spoiler person. Don't watch spoilers just in case you ever watch the film. But recently, withdrawn a bit from the cinema, quite happy to watch spoilers. So I watched and read all the Last Jedi reviews. And interestingly, especially around the time of its release, the professional reviews, or your magazine reviews, and some of the larger channel reviews on YouTube, very positive. Best Star Wars film ever. The comment sections and the public's perception of these films, however, was strikingly negative, I thought. So, a strange, not a balance, dichotomy. Dichotomy. People seem to either love this film or hate this film. You had a few people, like Red Letter Media, who kind of waded in through the middle and just said, it's alright. But on the whole, people strongly loved or strongly hated. And so it was that I went in with no side. I kind of hoped I'd really like it, so that I could make a kind of contrary review to the current feeling in the world. That's what I wanted to happen. Unfortunately, I'll say right now that I really, really didn't like it. I really didn't like it. But I'll also admit that I was in the cinema with a group of people who loved it, I think. So even within the space of sort of 6 seats, you had the whole range of opinion. From smiles, and I was sitting on this end, so from smiles over here, from the children, smile, smile. The adults, One of them, I think, admitted to being partially asleep during it. One next, And then to me, and took my shoes off at one point, but it was right because I remembered that I had showered and changed my socks immediately before going into the cinema. I mean, not in the car park. I mean, at home. Although, if they fitted showers in car parks, no, best not. Best not. Topic for another day, that, showering in a car park. So let's cut to the end. Walking out of the cinema. What did you think, Mercurial number 6? Expectant faces. Expectant faces expecting me to say, oh yeah, I went, and you can see them thinking, and my friend said to me, yeah, but at least it was better than the prequels. And then I had to think about it. I had to think, ooh, was it? Was it? Well, I hate to say it, but I probably watched Revenge of the Sith, and I didn't like that much either. So that lets you see where I was. I went in genuinely wanting to like it for my own personal reasons of being contrary on this channel. And I didn't like it. So if all you wanted to know was whether I liked it or not, I didn't like it, and you can switch off the video now. So why didn't I like it? What are my reasons? I've seen a few defensive YouTube videos recently. There's one by a girl, can't remember her name. She sort of speaks like a baby. I talk like a baby. Quite like her. You know, she's quite cute and everything, but talks like a baby, like this. She's got millions of subscribers because she talks like a baby. And she really liked the film. I mean, I think she was given a place at the premiere. So I do wonder what my opinion would be if someone paid for me to fly to, well, just paid for me to go to London and sit in the front row next to the Queen. Maybe that would influence me somewhat. But as I was just sitting at the back in an empty cinema, eating a lot of salted popcorn, is this honesty or is this influenced by salt? As we said earlier, the salt intake help you to, well, aid you, guide you towards a negative film review. I mean, it might. Salt equals negative film review. what I was trying to say was people are out there having a go at people who have a negative review of the film. It's now, I think, trendy to... So, the film comes out, everyone loves it, then everyone decides that they hate it, and I think it's now trendy to love it again because everyone hates it. And that's usually the sort of camp that I fall in. But anyway, let's talk about the film. Let's try to be positive first. What did I like about the film? The space battles were alright. Kind of. I don't have an issue with Kylo Ren. I think he could be a good bad guy. A good bad guy. Yeah, he could be a good bad guy. Oh, I meant to say, spoilers. This whole video is spoilers. Damn, I should have said that at the beginning. Perhaps we'll insert me saying this now at the beginning. Warning, spoilers. Spoilers ahead, spoilers. Spoilers. There you go. Insert that at the beginning. Luke has an explanation for the Force in this film. And bear in mind, I was fidgeting, wanted to get out of my chair. I was getting bored. I was trying not to fall asleep. So, and I'm never going to watch it again. It was just a one-off. He said it. But he gave an explanation of the Force. Rey was saying the Force is a power. And Luke was saying, no, the Force is kind of, it's already everywhere. You just kind of influence it. There's balance and stuff. To be said, I've already forgotten exactly what he said, but I thought that was alright. That was alright. What else was good? What else was good? I like the red. There was these red, like stormtrooper knight people who guarded Snoke. I thought they were quite good. I like the design of them, and they kind of had lightsaber nunchuckers. Quite like that. There must be something else I liked. Okay, that's the likes out of the way. Let's get into it. Why didn't I like Star Wars Episode 8? The Last Jedi. Even though I'd read all the reviews, the opening of this film still surprised me. It opens like an episode of Bottom. You've got Adrian Edmondson and a guy who looks like Rick Mail. And they, and forgive me for my lack of knowledge of the characters here, but you've got the swashbuckling Han Solo type guy who's called Poe. Apologies if that's wrong. Called Poe, I think. The guy with the dark hair, likes to fly spaceships. And he's flying towards the guys out of Bottom. Bottom's a 90s British comedy, kind of laboratory humour. Follows on from the young ones, kind of in its style of humour. And it's one of my favourite comedies of all time, especially the first series. If you haven't seen it, absolute classics. But this is a problem when you transfer this to Star Wars. So Poe, or is it Finn? I think it's Poe. He's flying towards the space station where Adrian Edmondson and Rick Mail are standing there. And he starts to have like intercom communication with them. And the Rick Mail character starts decreeing stuff to him, things that you will and won't do and stuff, which I can't quite remember because I've already forgotten it. Talking, and then he stopped, waiting for a reply from Poe. And Poe went something like, you're on call waiting. They made it basically a phone gag. A phone gag. And then the Rick Mail character had to say it all again. And then Poe went, sorry, you're still on call waiting. And then the Rick Mail character was saying, can you hear me? Looking to his staff, all the stormtrooper guys, can he hear me? And they're like, no, Rick, I think you'll find he's just taking the piss. He can hear you. He's taking the piss. He's doing a phone joke. So I'm not joking here. This actually happens at the beginning of this film. I mean, you guys have already seen it probably, so you know what I'm talking about. But the Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, which probably cost about, I don't know, how many millions did it cost to make? Let's find out. Hold on. $200 million. So in a $200 million film, we start with a Bottom-style phone gag. So that set the scene. I don't mind humour. I think if I made would I use would I use humour in a Star Wars film? Look, the Star Wars films, the only ones that I ever think about, which is the original trilogy, they had humour. Because C-3PO and R2-D2, they were like a little comedy couple, weren't they? And there was elements of humour throughout. So the original Star Wars films had humour. I just wasn't prepared for... What do you guys think about that? You could comment below, couldn't you, on what you guys think about that if you've watched it. What did you think about the fact that it opened like an episode of Bottom? I haven't written anything down. No notes. No order here. Just thinking off the top of my head what annoyed me. What was next? Luke Skywalker. Let's talk about Luke Skywalker. So, the film before this one, The Force Awakens, was a remake of Star Wars, right? So we could kind of start again. However, even though it was a remake of Star Wars, it still chose to big up Luke Skywalker in that the whole film was building towards Rey meeting Luke. And this new film has that moment where she hands Luke the lightsaber. And what Luke does, and I'm sure this was a good idea in the scriptwriter's head, and it's the sort of thing that I could imagine that I would flippantly do as well, if I was making it, maybe, is Luke just takes the skyscraper. Luke just takes the lightsaber and chucks it over his shoulder. Like that. Not necessarily. It was a bit weird. But bear in mind, like everything, like most of the things in this little review, the difference here was, for me, unlike most audience members on the premiere, was because I'd read all the reviews and watched all the reviews first. I already knew what other people were moaning about. So I knew that Luke was going to chuck the lightsaber over his shoulder. So I expectantly, and I've seen other people moan about how rubbish it is. So my opinion was already weighted, influenced, tarnished, whatever you want to say. But, he threw it over his shoulder and I kind of agreed. It was a bit weird. And the Luke character throughout the film is not... Luke was always a bit whiny, but Luke seems unnecessary here. And they choose to have him ignoring Rey, and I mean, that's not such a weird thing because I think I'd ignore her as well. She's not. I thought she was all right in The Force Awakens. She's not necessarily growing on me. She's not growing on me. But then Luke slips off to this is I found this bit a bit bizarre. Again, I'd heard one person say this was going to happen, so I was slightly prepared for it. But Luke slips off and milks. He finds the breast of a large kind of gorilla animal. He walks up to this large gorilla animal and starts milking its breast. He squirts the milk into a bottle. He milks it. Milks this animal. He milks a very large animal and he drinks the milk. And I said to my mates, I said, what about that bit where they decided to show, even if it happens, you don't need to see it, where they decided to show Luke milking and drinking a large mammal. And their response was, well, what did you expect him to do? He has to drink something. He can't drink the seawater. Very true, my mercenaries, but also you don't really see Luke taking a shit, or any characters. And for instance, you never saw the Emperor in the original trilogy taking a dump, did you? You never saw Princess Leia taking a dump. Do I need to see Luke milking a large mammal? However, if ever there was a film that was going to show one of the main characters taking a dump, it would be this bottom universe version of Star Wars, I suppose. Anyway, Luke milks a large mammal. It's just so small. Rather than help Rey. Didn't really like that. Didn't really like that. There was a scene at the beginning where Poe, I think it is going after a dreadnought. They're kind of inventing all these new spaceships for the Star Wars universe. And there's this dreadnought. It's a big, like, Empire spaceship. No, the First Order spaceship. And he takes out all the gun turrets on it so that the bombers can go in. So we've got like World War II style bombing missions going on now in space, and you've got these like great big slow lumbering bombers that have got nothing but bombs like racked up inside, where the bottom can open up and all the bombs fall out. So these bombers go in, about 30 or so of them come in over this spaceship because Poe's taken out the gun turrets, and they come in and their whole mission is to just drop the bombs down onto the things, and all the TIE fighters come out and they blow up all the bombers, but one of the bombers gets to its location where it's supposed to be, and they open the bottom, and the bottom slides open, and all the bombs drop out and blow the whole thing up. And yes, even without having watched the reviews first, where they've already slagged this off, even without that, I was sitting there thinking, we're in space. The bombs wouldn't fall out. Bombing is the wrong... Bombing, as we know it, in our Earth-based, gravity-based warfare, bombing is the wrong thing to do when you're in space. Bombing ain't going to work. And as my friend who was sitting next to me said, why didn't Poe just have one of those bombs on his TIE fight, on his X-Wing thing, so we could take all the guns out? He's been that good at taking all the guns out. Then just fly over the bit where the bombs had to go and drop the bloody bomb in. If you could drop it, which you can't. Unless we're saying that the spaceship's so big that it's got its own gravity. Do you realise how big you have to be to have your own gravitational force? My mercenaries. This ship isn't spinning 2001 style to create gravity or to create the illusion of gravity. It's just static like that. Gravity, my mercenaries, is one of the weakest forces in the universe. Yes, it makes the universe work. Everything's spinning around everything else. It's powerful in that respect, but in terms of the gravitational forces between these two objects right now, and there are gravitational forces between them. What the hair is that? It's right, it's not a hair, it's synthetic. It's some sort of cloth. I thought I was holding a pube up to the camera then. Yeah, so I think we need to take umbrage with that. It's not like Star Wars was ever trying to do a kind of realism, was it? But I think that's a problem. Bombs in space! So we're walking out of the cinema, and my friend says to me, they made a bit of a bad judgment call, didn't they, on which main character to keep alive, out of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, given current real-world situations. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So that is interesting, if you think about how the final film is set up. Only Princess Leia survives. Which takes me on to the Princess Leia Mary Poppins scene. And this is the bit that every review has touched upon. And having watched the Red Letter Media review, where they were kind of soft on this bit, they didn't find it funny, I thought I might hopefully like it, so I'd be able to sit here now and be contrary again. But it was bad. It was bad. It was bad. I thought it was bad. I didn't laugh. I didn't hear anyone laughing. But it was bad. And even when I'm editing these videos, because, I mean, at least they have a script. And they go through different drafts of the script, and they know roughly what's happening. I don't have any script. But I still have the ability to look back at what I've done in the edit. Everybody has the ability to look back through their videos during an edit. So when someone chooses to leave something in, don't have too much sympathy for them. That's all I would say. I'm talking about certain big YouTubers here who I'm still... I think even if I'd got as far as writing the script for Princess Leia flying through space like a mixture of Superman and Mary Poppins. I think even if I'd written it and had it approved and someone else added to it and it went through various stages and then we even filmed it, I think during the edit I'd still look at it and think, do you know what? If in doubt, leave it out. But they left it in. And people have said, well, you know, Leia has shown no evidence of force powers before. How is she flying through space once she must have already died? I wouldn't agree with that necessarily. Princess Leia is supposed to be Luke Skywalker's sister, Darth Vader's daughter, therefore she must have force powers. She's shown a little bit before where she can sense things. But I do agree, once you've been blown out into space and frozen to death, I think that's the wrong moment to show Leia's powers. Too much too late, probably. What do you think? Too much too late? What else did I take issue with? The hyperspace thing. So in Star Wars, they've always been, they showed it in the first film. Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon, it can hyperspace, go faster than light. So it's always been there in the universe. And in this film, the woman with the pink hair, purple hair, chooses to destroy an Empire First Order ship by hyperspacing into it. And it works. So, using hyperspace as a weapon. Now, I haven't read or heard too much about this. Maybe it's a case that somehow this is new technology in The Last Jedi, but as far as I'm aware, what she did was she turned the ship around to face the enemy ship. So the enemy ship's chasing the good ship, and the good ship turns to face the enemy ship, and it hyperspaces into it, destroying everything. So that seems like that could have happened in the original Star Wars. So Han Solo could have turned the Millennium Falcon towards an enemy ship and hyperspaced into it. Yes? That seems to make sense? Yes? So if that's the case, then surely you can use any hyperspaceable spaceship as a weapon. So, now my knowledge of Star Wars, I'm not the greatest, biggest Star Wars fan. I mean, I had the toys when I was a kid, and I was into Star Wars, and I had a cheap lightsaber, a lightsaber, like a liposuction saber. The Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader knows where the Rebel Alliance base is on the planet Hoth. So he sends down a load of walking dogs, AT-ATs, right, to go and manually go and destroy this base, right? Whereas what he could have done was take one big spaceship, get everybody off it, because the problem with Star Wars films is we celebrate the rebels blow up a massive dreadnought spaceship. And we're all applauding and applauding. Woohoo! Yeah, brilliant! What you got to remember is, all the people on there, they're baddies, I suppose. But people get caught up in wars and do things that they probably, with the benefit of hindsight, wouldn't have done. But they're all on this ship. They're probably in, there'll be some people on that dreadnought that Poe takes out at the beginning with the bombers and stuff. There'll have been some people on there just at the canteen, probably. Having, like, lunch. Probably. Or sitting on the toilet. I mean, there must have been a high percentage of people, not a high percentage, there must have been a percentage of people on that dreadnought, big, massive space, city-sized spaceship. There must have been, say, perhaps 2% of all the people, 1% of all the people on that spaceship might have been sitting on the toilet at that time, 5% in the canteen, some of them getting dressed, stacking shelves, whatever. They all died. They all died. 1 million people dead. That's what you miss in these films, the sense of scale. It's definitely missed. Anyway, so there's the rebel base on Hoth. All Darth Vader has to do is get a hyperspaceable ship in his fleet, point it down towards where he thinks the rebel base is on Hoth, get everybody out of the spaceship, Just leave one person, maybe, or autopilot it, stick it into hyperspace, and that rebel base and everybody there is gone. Gone. It's such a great weapon. You can still build the Death Star, I suppose, if you want to have a planet-destroying weapon. But on the whole, just build massive, massive spaceships that can hyperspace and use them as missiles. Kind of drifted from my point there, but I didn't really understand how they... It created a sense of spectacle for this particular film, but I think it broke the Star Wars lore. Correct me if I'm wrong, my mercenaries. Also, I'd heard the likes of Grace. Yeah, I think it was Grace from Beyond the trailer, saying how the moment where the girl with the purple hair hyperspaces into the enemy ship and they make a judgment call to mute the sound. And she was obviously in a premiere, so there would have been, I don't know, 1,000 people in the audience. And she said that was spectacular. Like an artistic choice, that's what I'm trying to say. The artistic choice to mute the sound at that moment as everything destroys and disintegrates. The way she talked about that, I thought it was going to be a big moment in the film, like a long moment where perhaps time slows down and the sound goes out and we see just death and mayhem and destruction in slow time, in flashes, in waves, and it would be some spectacle, some epic set piece. It wasn't. It wasn't. It just went like that. And I thought, oh, all right. And also, it managed to save Finn and I think she was called Rose. They were just about to die and it sort of saved them by complete and utter fluke accident. Very, very strange choices. Just very strange script choices in this film. Very strange script choices. Which leads me to, I suppose, the main storyline, which is just the fact is that the First Order are chasing the rebels, and the rebels stay just out of distance of the First Order's cannons, and they're going along together like this, and the First Order is waiting for the rebels to run out of fuel, and that's kind of what it's about. And I'd seen loads of videos about people saying how this is a terrible plot device. I don't know. I didn't much like it. I didn't think it was a great thing to hang your film on. But what happens due to it is there's a whole side plot where people are trying to think of ways to kind of end this chase and to come out on top. So Finn and the kind of Asian girl go down to this casino. And I've read lots of people saying this whole scene is terrible, completely unnecessary, doesn't move the plot forward. My problems with it weren't necessarily... I don't know. It was a device for them to meet Benicio del Toro, who plays quite a cool character in it, kind of, for the few frames that he's in it. And he double crosses them, and that's when they get saved by the hyperspace. It's confusing in that look, this film goes on far too long, alright? Far too long. I'd say it's half an hour too long. In the edit, I mean, you shouldn't film it in the first place, but in the edit, I would have taken that whole thing out, and it would have improved the film because it would have just flowed better. So that's my criticism, I suppose. What they've actually put on film is interesting, I suppose. Anything to do with saving animals, I don't mind. I'm up for that. But clip it out, and the film would have probably been better for it. What else was there? Snoke. This is an interesting one. Snoke. Now, Snoke is killed by Kylo Ren. And the majority of people out there who have an issue with this, and I found myself saying the same thing, so I can't rule myself out of this. I had a little argument with my friend at the cinema over it, or just outside, where I said I didn't like the death of Snoke. The death of Snoke was similar to the moment that Luke throws the lightsaber over his shoulder. You build up to a point, you introduce the character, you make him seem more powerful, and then you kill him. And it was said to me that, no, that's the point. Snoke was nobody. He was just somebody. It didn't matter that he died. It didn't matter who he was. Because my argument back was, you can only really kill somebody and make somebody care if you've already established who they are. And they said, no, it doesn't matter who he is. He's nobody. The fact is that it opens the way for Kylo Ren to be the baddie. That might be true, but I kind of did need... For the film to truly work, you kind of do need Snoke to be somebody. You kind of do. Because they did put effort. They made him mysterious in The Force Awakens, as far as I remember, although I haven't rewatched all of it. They made him out to be some... He looks like he's like 1,000,000 years old, all right? So there's the opportunity for him to be some kind of person who's always been around, even during the Star Wars era, the original trilogy, during Darth Vader and the Emperor. There's the opportunity for Snoke to have always been a presence. And then, if you then killed him in the 9th film, it could be a big deal. But you haven't. You establish him, he flies some people about the room a bit, acts like he's all-powerful in his Liberace suit, and then he gets sliced in half. I wanted to truly believe that it was a good death, so I could go against all the commenters and naysayers and be contrary, but it wasn't. It was a bit shit. It was a bit shit. It's like the old Chekhov thing, isn't it? I'm probably getting my things wrong here, but if in the first scene in a play in a theatre you show a gun, there's a gun lying on the mantelpiece in the room. At some point during your play, that gun better be of some significance. And if you're going to establish a mysterious character called Snoke, and then you're going to show that he's all powerful, I think rather than it being a surprise when he dies, which it probably would have been if I didn't know about it beforehand, but there was probably better ways to make use of an evil character who's so powerful than to just have him just sliced in half and then forgotten about. On the positive side, this movie obviously did have the power to surprise, because a lot of the people who are pissed off with elements of this film may have been pissed off because it kept confounding what they thought might happen. I suppose no one would have thought that Luke would chuck the lightsaber over his shoulder. No one would have expected Snoke to die in such a crap way. If your whole Star Wars film is just the ending of every Night M. Shyamalan film cut together, and that's your film, the ending of The Sixth Sense mixed with the ending of The Happening, mixed with the ending of The Village, mixed with... It may be surprising, but I think you need to develop character sufficiently so that an audience will care about the surprise you've set up. If you don't build up Snoke enough, I'm not going to care that he's dead. And if you don't care that I don't care that he's dead, if that's your point, that he was never meant to be anything particularly, he was just a setup for Kylo Ren to be the new baddie. If you don't care that I don't care, then I don't have to care that you don't care that I don't care. Which reminds me, who's Rey? Who is Rey? Who was Rey's parents? That was, as far as I remember, from watching The Force Awakens 1.5 times. That was a kind of a theme of the first film, kind of. Who's Rey's parents? And the whole fandom world was speculating. Is she Luke's daughter? Is she Han Solo's daughter? Is she Obi-Wan Kenobi's daughter? Is she, whose daughter? She has to be someone's daughter. Sons and daughters, love and laughter, tears of sadness and happiness. She has to be someone's daughter. I'm not one of those fandom people. I didn't give a second thought to who Rey's parents were. However, in this film, it turns out that Rey. It turns out that Rey's parents were nobody, particularly. Nobody. I didn't mind that. I mean, that's one of the biggest complaints that the fans have against this film. The fact that they build Rey up to be someone important, and it turns out she's nobody. I didn't mind that. I think that went hand in hand with Luke's explanation of what the Force is. And it gets away a little bit from the idea that you have to be like special, like a royal lineage. Who's going to be the next British, who's going to take over after the Queen? Well, it has to be Prince Charles because he's the oldest son. So, if it's not Prince Charles, it has to be Prince William. And it becomes like that. And so Luke Skywalker in the first film, he could only be a Jedi because he was the son of Anakin Skywalker. And he had to be trained to use the Force. And I quite like that The Last Jedi gets away from the fact that you have to be trained by a little green man. That the Force exists everywhere. And you just, to use it, perhaps you just have to believe in it. And I always saw the Force, it was implicit, wasn't it? That the Force was basically a religion in the first film, in Star Wars, A New Hope. Star Wars. I always thought when I was a kid, I always thought of the Force like a religion. You got to believe in it. You got to believe in it. So the idea that you can be anybody, and people have taken umbrage at the end of the film. There's a boy doing some sweeping, and he kind of reaches for the broom, and the broom goes to his hand. And we have to assume that the wind didn't just blow at that moment, and the broom just fell over. We have to assume that he summoned it with the Force. Perhaps he didn't even. Does he even know what he's doing? He wanted the broom came to him. The idea that the Force is everywhere, everywhere. Binding. I'm sure. Doesn't Alec Guinness say it in the original Star Wars? The Force is something, and it binds us together. It's the idea that the Force is kind of the electrical. It's the impulses. It's the electricity. It's the current between the atoms of our very bodies. The Force is everywhere. And if you can manipulate the Force, I mean, how would you do that? You can only do it if you're the son of Anakin Skywalker. No, anyone can do it. Perhaps there are people being born all over the universe that just happen to magically have it. They're born in a stable in Bethlehem or whatever, but just happen to have that ability to manipulate. Which brings me on to one of my main issues with this kind of stuff. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the idea that it's a galaxy. I mean, we're in a galaxy, the Milky Way, yeah? But when you look into how big the Milky Way galaxy is, it is huge. It's huge. There's so much going on in our very own galaxy we know nothing about. It's massive. And the problem with the Star Wars films for me is that I don't really get a sense of their scope. It's supposed to be like the First Order, and the battle between the First Order, even in the first films, the battle between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance is supposed to be galaxy-wide. It's supposed to be the most important conflict that there is. But when you boil it down to its essence, it ends up with a bloke who used to fix... Oh, what did Luke used to fix on his planet? Vaporators. Anyway, a bloke wearing a white dressing gown fighting a bloke with a black bucket on his head. But the whole conflict of the galaxy, the clash between the light and the dark, actually ends up being on board a spaceship between a bloke with a bucket on his head and a bloke wearing a white dressing gown. I know that's what's got to happen because it's a film, but you just lose a sensible scope for it all. And I found that in this film that it's just so small. Do any of you understand what I mean? It's all so small. It's just a little drop. The galaxy's massive. I suppose in its favour, because they've invented faster than light travel and hyperspace, you could say that if you can travel faster than the speed of light, then you can kind of bring the galaxy together. A planet can be right over here at one edge of the galaxy and over here at the other edge of the galaxy, if you can travel faster than the speed of light. But still, when it still boils down to a bloke in a Liberace suit being cut in half by a lightsaber and the whole fate of the galaxy rests upon it, that's my issue with it. I suppose in some ways the prequels dealt with that better than any of the other films, because they had the assembly, didn't they? Like the UN, with all the little pods from all the planets from all over the galaxy. But I don't know, my mercenaries. Bit of an unfair criticism to level against this film. Could probably be levelled against any universe-wide sci-fi extravaganza, I suppose. The death of Luke Skywalker. The prequels, let's face it, we were talking about this the other day. If you're going to watch the Star Wars films, modern consensus seems to be among the youth, and remember, this is a different generation now. This is a generation that grew up during the prequels being released and grew up with their main epic cinematic saga being the Harry Potter series. But I think common cinema consensus now is that if you're going to watch the Star Wars films, watch The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. Simple. Watch episodes 1 through 8. That's obviously not the order to watch the films in. It's like, this isn't even an argument. You do not watch the films in that order. You definitely watch the films in the order they were filmed in. You start with Star Wars, then The Empire Strikes Back, then Return of the Jedi, then you can go back to The Phantom Menace. That makes complete sense. You do not start with a bloody prequel trilogy, else the whole revelation in The Empire Strikes Back is isn't it, my mercenaries? So, the prequels build up the idea of Anakin Skywalker, and the original trilogy moves that on to the next generation, Luke Skywalker. So people keep saying it, that the whole series is based on the Skywalkers, and therefore the death of Luke Skywalker would be a big deal, right? Unfortunately, Luke sits on a rock and dies. Probably 5 minutes after he milked a large mammal and sucked and drank its juice. It's just so small. Drank its breast juice. Look, Mark Hamill, obviously, hate using the word obviously, but obviously, due to his many tweets and interviews over the last couple of years, was obviously not happy with the direction that Luke Skywalker has taken in these two films. He was not happy. Now, recently he's tweeted something saying, I apologise, I was wrong to be so public with my negativity. I now appreciate that Rian Johnson is a great filmmaker and The Last Jedi is a great film. But if you believe that, you'll believe anything. I think Mark Hamill was quite right to not be happy with the direction of Luke Skywalker. This isn't the way that I would have wanted Luke Skywalker to end. However, I'm not like some massive fan where I care too much. But there must have been a way to do the Luke Skywalker death thing without having him just sit on a rock. There must have been a better way. Yes, he sits on a rock looking at the twin suns and it's all very emotional, but was it supposed to make me care? Was I supposed to be sitting in a cinema crying when Luke died and his cloak flap to the floor like Obi-Wan's did in Star Wars? Was I supposed to cry? Because I didn't. I didn't give a shit. It was an hour after I wanted to be sitting there. I wanted to dance. I was doing that on my toes. I was crunching my toes. I had my shoes off and I was doing that with my toes. I was readjusting. I was sitting on this arse cheek. Then I was sitting on this arse cheek. Then I had to take my phone out of my pocket because my phone was digging in. And I think I was fidgeting so much at the back of the cinema that on 2 occasions the staff came in, because I could see them down at the bottom there. The staff came in and held up some sort of infrared camera towards me. And I think they must have cameras in the cinema watching people to see whether anyone's recording the screen. I think I was doing so much of this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, that they must have thought, he's up to no good. They kept coming in, twice it happened. They came in and pointed it right at me. I could tell it was right at me. They're thinking, what's the Mercurial number 6 up to up there? And I was just thinking, Luke's dying an hour too late. He should have died an hour ago. And I didn't want him sitting on a rock. I mean, on the positive side, he wasn't being a Force ghost. He was projecting himself. And he projected himself so vividly across the galaxy onto this other planet. He projected himself so vividly that even Kylo Ren, who's made out to be like a supreme Force power, didn't realise that it was just a Force projection. So if there's a positive there, it shows that Luke was, in his own way, finally, in his death, all-powerful. Perhaps it didn't show Kylo Ren in the best light, in that he didn't realise that he was fighting against a hologram. He spent a fair bit of time fighting against a hologram until he realised, and like, oh, hang on. Like Rimmer in early series of Red Dwarf. Hang on, you're not even there. No, Listy! I'm not here, Listy! I just think if you gave me the film and said to me, Mercurial number 6, we're going to give you the opportunity to direct a Star Wars film here, and there's a few things we want to happen in this film. You can do basically whatever you want, but we want the film to end with the death of Luke Skywalker. Honestly, I mean, I'm no filmmaker. I don't want to be too hard on this whole team here, because it looked, you know, it looked good. Apart from the effects on Snoke, didn't like those. A bit crap, really. It looked good. It sounded good. The acting was the acting was. Don't like Rey. That girl struggles to act. Princess Leia, people are saying that Carrie Fisher should be given like a posthumous Oscar for her performance in this film. If giving an Oscar to a brick or a piece of floating timber, a piece of driftwood, if that's what you do in the Oscars these days, then fine. But I'm no filmmaker. If you told me you got to write a film, number 6, Mercurial number 6, you got to write a film, and the only thing we stipulate is that at the end Luke Skywalker has to die, I'd say, well, hang on, couldn't we have Luke Skywalker live and have Princess Leia die? It would be a bit easier because of the acting issues around it. No, Mercurial number 6. We want Luke Skywalker to die at the end. I think that even I could come up with a better story for him to die in than this one. And I suppose finally, perhaps the criticism that has the director of this film, Rian Johnson, ever watched any Star Wars films before? I don't know. It's like the criticism I've had recently about some of my album reviews, where I just pick up a piece of vinyl and just listen to it and talk about it. The latest comment I've had on my channel, which wasn't a bad comment, it wasn't having a go at me, it was just someone said, wouldn't it be better, Mercurial number 6, if you at least researched the album a little bit just to get the track titles right? And I read that and I thought, yeah, you've got a fair point there. I suppose you've got a fair point there. And to me, it felt a little bit like Rian Johnson purposefully didn't watch any Star Wars films. before writing this one or directing this one, just so that he would definitely be different and definitely be surprising. And I suppose I'd end this with just saying that the element of surprise and twist, you know, a twist ending doesn't necessarily make a good film make. That's good. A twist ending doesn't necessarily a good film make. It can, a Sixth Sense, but sometimes it doesn't. Every other M. Shyamalanian film. Shyamalan. That sounds like a Bay City Rollers song. Don't it, my mercenaries? So that's my feelings of The Last Jedi. I came out, people looked at me expectantly, expecting that I would like it, because these people hadn't watched you. Got to remember, my mercenaries, your average person on the street, your general public, does not watch YouTube video reviews of films. It's only the likes of me who are immersed in the ecosystem, have my own channel, have loads of subscriptions, constantly streaming YouTube to my TV, watching stuff, watching Beyond the Trailer, watching Red Letter Media, watching Oliver Harper's stuff, watching this, watching that, watching and basking it, embracing it, which is why the whole Logan Paul thing pisses me off so much, because he's a cretinous, odious, stupid little runt. And his followers, all 100 million of them, are just obviously complete fuckwits. And it just kind of makes me angry that I kind of want to shut my channel down so I'm not associated with this detritus. But you have to remember that the people out there, the general public, don't watch this. They went into The Last Jedi just going in to see it as a Star Wars film. Stuff happened, they came out and they were satisfied. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because as one of my friends said to me on the night, Mercurial number 6, you're thinking about this too much. This is just entertainment. You're just supposed to immerse yourself in the experience for 2.5, 3 hours. Don't try and dissect it. A film isn't art, it's just entertainment. Now, the fact that I disagree with him on every level doesn't come into it. He does have a point. And that's the reason why The Last Jedi has currently made £100 billion and is a complete success. Oh yeah, just seeing Chewbacca there. Chewbacca, they introduce porgs, I think they're called, penguin creatures. These little cute penguin creatures, probably for merchandise stuff, but whatever. These penguin creatures. And Chewbacca has roasted one, has it on a spit, like a chicken, roasted it, and he's about to eat it. And one of the family members looks at Chewbacca in complete horror. And Chewbacca ends up, like, as a kind of joke, going and just throwing it on the floor. I think that was supposed to be funny. I found it horrifying. Imagine if an alien race came down, a big hairy alien race came down, and then got a couple of members of your family, tore them away from you, skinned them, roasted them, put them on spits, and started to eat them directly in front of you. Can you imagine the sheer horror of that? And that was in this Star Wars film. So many wrong moves, I thought, when it came to comedy. Well, my mercenaries, I'm sorry, that was a very long video. Like I say, it did end up being a little bit of a review, didn't it? But it was supposed to be more of just a chat. And if people who aren't subscribers to this channel have watched this far, and you're probably already doing that frantically on your keyboards because I've dissed something that you enjoy or love, I do apologise. Not for what I've said. No, I don't apologise at all. I don't apologise at all. Give me your wrath. Alright? Let me see those fingers. Let me see those fingers. Let me see those fingers. Thank you, my mercenaries. Thank you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. I liked that bit as well. I liked that bit. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Over and